Today I'm going to be revisiting one of the most beloved cartoons to see if it still holds up today. Chowder. Is the comedy still there? Does the concept still work? Are the plotlines still very fun and enjoyable? Those are all the questions we're going to be attempting to answer today by taking a look at the 2 best episodes, the 2 worst episodes, and 2 random episodes. And if you like content just like this, please make sure to like and subscribe because I upload every single day. And at 50k I'm going to be cosplaying as Pops from Regular Show, doing the Milk Challenge, and going to a karaoke bar and singing Footloose. And if you want a place where you can talk about your favorite shows, movies, games, cartoons, pretty much anything you want, you could share your art, you could share video ideas, all that good stuff, my Discord will be in the description. Now let's take a look at Chowder. And the first episode I'm going to be taking a look at with a 8.0 rating on IMDb, said to be one of the best, is the episode Burple Nurples. And man, it's just so fun revisiting this series after not watching it for what must have been 10 years. I always loved Chowder growing up, but I never actually took the time to be like, oh, I should go rewatch Chowder. So this is a just great experience, at least for me, especially if you're a person that loves Chowder. But either way, Burple Nurples, you gotta love it. It's just so nice with that intro of Panini just selling some goods, some baked goods, and Chowder rolling by on a giant watermelon is just, I'm not your boyfriend! And then he just stops because he actually has a question for her, and she's been selling her own stuff because her boss, Andiv, I'm kind of forgetting her name, Andive, something like that, let her do it all on her own, so now Chowder wants to go and do that himself, so he rolls his giant watermelon over there, causes a little bit of destruction on the way, and he's like, Man, please. And something I notice is Chowder actually annoys me a little bit now, but there's something about his annoyance. A lot of shows, they will tend to just make their main character really annoying, but not have any charm about it. Chowder, he just starts going, please, and it goes on way too long to the point where I was like, Chowder, stop it, Chowder, please. But then it's just kind of paid off with a joke where he's stuck and he just physically can't stop even after Mong is all like, Chowder, you can stop now. I can't, I'm stuck. And that...
You can stop now.
I wish I could, but I'm stuck.
kind of made me laugh. So I feel like every time he was annoying, it was paid off with a little bit of charm, and it actually ended up being a really funny joke, which I believe is the beauty of Chowder, I suppose. So either way, he's told that he can make Burple Nurples by Mong to prove that he is a great assistant and he can do it all on his own. And he chooses a very hard recipe, which is Burple Nurples instead of pickle in a cup. You know, he's such a real cook, and I really liked all the scenes of Chowder just cooking all on his own. And there's also a scene where he goes around and he's screaming, Burple Nurples! to everybody. And that also went on too long, but then he just ends up at a random guy's house and the random guy's just like, who are you? And he's just like, Purple Nurples!
Purple Nurples! Purple Nurples! Purple Nurples! Purple Nurples!
Who are you?
So, like, again, he was annoying me, but then it's paid off with a joke that actually made me laugh, so I was okay with it. That's some good annoying comedy right there. You gotta have it pay off at least a little bit. And while he's cooking, it's really funny because Mog is trying to, like, just hover over him, just be like, Chowder, please make sure you're putting the right things in there. And Chowder's like, why can't you trust me, Mog? Why can't you trust me? As he's grabbing the poison and puts the poison into his Burple Nurples and makes one of the most decrepit, disgusting meals ever that now is filled with poison that he's intentionally wanting to go and sell to people.
It's just us.
What?
But...
Why won't you trust me as a chef, Mom?
Yeah, that's pretty wild. But either way, he goes out there, he sets up his stand, and I love this scene where Mong just shows up and he's like, he's wearing a disguise because he doesn't want Chowder to know, but he's like, oh, hello, my dear boy. Are these Burple Nurples? I'm a Burple Nurple connoisseur. I don't even have to try them to know if they're good or not. And Chowder's like, but you must try them. Oh, please. And so Mong, he's staring at one, and it just speaks to him. It just says, you will die.
You will die.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I just enjoy it. And then we get a bunch of Mong shenanigans where he tries to prevent people from eating the Burple Nurples at all costs, and I just enjoy it. Gorgonzola shows up. Haven't heard the name Gorgonzola in quite a while. It's like on par with Gorlock the Destroyer. I love it. And he has a little bidding war with him, and then he makes a bunch of other people not be able to have it. I love this one scene where he dresses up as a woman, and he walks up to Chowder and he's like,
Oh, any chance I could get those purple nipples for free for being such a pretty lady?
and Chowder's like, no, where's the pretty woman? And he's offended, and then he's like, any chance an ugly woman can get them for free? No, sorry, ugly women have to pay.
Let's give a free sample to an ugly lady.
No, ugly ladies have to pay.
That was really funny. I thought that was a great joke. And so Mong, being the respected man that he is, he's just like, these are mine now. And grabs them and starts running away, sprinting away. And Chowder's just chasing him while saying, $300! That was good. And he goes into the bathroom. And there's this toilet that's alive, but I just forgot so many different things about how this world works. So this entire chase scene was a lot of fun, but the toilet's alive, and he's like, I love purple nurples. And so Mong doesn't want to feed it to the toilet because he doesn't want the toilet to die. And then Chowder walks into the bathroom, and Chowder is looking for it, and I don't know if it's because he was just reiterating the fact that he likes the food purple nurples, or if Chowder like went to use the bathroom and he saw Chowder's giblets, and he's like, I like purple nurples. I don't know. That's kind of a gray area, but either way, Chowder runs away screaming, so perhaps the toilet was trying to coerce him into something dirty and nasty. I'm not sure. And so either way, the chase scene continues. It's just decent. They eventually end up at Mount Fondue. It's just a volcano of fondue and cookliness, and that is when Mong is like, I know what I must do. And he starts sprinting up the volcano. We get Lord of the Burples. He runs up there, and I thought we were gonna get like a Chowder kind of acting like Smeagol or something like,
He wants it. He wants the nurples. It's the nurples. Mong, do it.
something like that. I thought we were gonna kind of get that, but we didn't. He just looks back and says, I'm sorry, and throws them into the lava.
Sorry.
And then Mong and Chowder are fine after that because Mong says that he's very proud of Chowder. Overall, a lot of fun. Man, I miss Chowder. It's really good. There's a lot of good moments. A lot of moments in this episode genuinely got me to laugh. And I feel like the episode also flowed really well. I feel like it was very linear, but everything they did was interesting and entertaining all at the same time. And I was just having a good time. Going into it, I was a little bit worried because yes, Chowder does have those moments where he is a very annoying character, but unlike a lot of shows, I feel like it's always paid off with something interesting. A lot of shows, they will have a character do something annoying, like, this is just an example, like, SpongeBob also usually pays it off, especially in seasons 1 through 3, but they'll just do that annoying thing, and then that's just their core character trait, is to just be annoying. But Chowder, he'll be really annoying, and then there's a great joke to pay it off, so I'm like, oh, well, at least I endured all of that for a laugh at the end, you know? I feel like that's what it's all about. Either way, if I was to rate this episode 1 out of 10, I would give this a solid 10 out of 10. I had a great time throughout the entire thing. It may just be like recency bias of finally returning to Chowder that it's given me all giddy and such, but I had a lot of fun, and this episode was fun throughout. Lots of good jokes, great plot. Overall, definitely deserves a 10 out of 10 rating. Going over to the next best episode with a 8.0 rating on IMDb, we have Schnitzel Makes a Deposit. And man, this one was kind of hard to sit through, but for the right reasons in a way, because it makes you feel like Schnitzel, you know? You get your inner rada 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 rada. That's the point of it. It's supposed to be hard to sit through because you're supposed to be, you know, comparing your feelings while watching this episode to Schnitzel, and although it feels boring, that is how Schnitzel feels when he was forced to sit in that line. So this episode has Schnitzel on his payday, and I love this opening scene where Schnitzel is getting his check and he just starts rada rada, just, you know, loving his money, and he's very excited. And then Mong says to Chowder that he should go with Schnitzel to go and make his very own first deposit. Schnitzel does not like this, but ultimately he doesn't really have a choice, so he has to ultimately go with Chowder, which turns out to basically ruin his entire day and just ruin everything because Chowder can be a lot sometimes, and this episode highlights just how much Chowder could truly be. So they get to the bank, and we get our first opening scene of Chowder's annoyance, where he wants a lollipop and just goes, and she's like,
Would you like a lollipop, Sonny?
would I? Would you? Would I? Would you? Would I? Would you? Would I? Would you? Yeah, that goes on for a while.
Would you
Would I what?
care for a free lollipop?
Would I?
Would you?
But that was kind of funny, so I was okay with it. And then we just get a lot of shenanigans in line, him going up to the teller, and my initial thought, like, I don't remember this episode, but my initial thought when I saw the teller with his big old nose and his old body, I was just like, this guy's going to die. He's going to actually die. And Schnitzel, he walks up, and he forgets to sign the back of his check, so he goes over to sign it. Chowder's supposed to hold their place in line. He doesn't, so now they're in the back of the line. Schnitzel is struggling immensely. I just feel bad for that guy. And the guy behind them in line has, like, a little circle, like, tie thing, and Chowder just starts slapping it. Just slapping it over and over again. And then, you know, after like a solid 20 seconds, the guy gets offended and he's like, it's not my fault that I have a neck outstretched in the shape of a circle tie.
Huh? Just think this is funny? Huh? Letting your kid do this to me? Just because I have a tie-shaped growth on my neck?
So that's actually a part of his body and he was just letting Chowder slap it. Why? But either way, they get moved to the timeout corner, which means they also lose their spot in line. So Schnitzel is even more sad. Poor guy. And then we get to the Forsaken counting. The counting takes up at least 4 minutes of this episode, which I was not prepared for.
13, 14, 15.
I didn't know that it was going to be this long, but this lady wants to make a deposit of some doubloons, or I forget what they call it, just the currency. She wants to make 200. And that is when the old man starts going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, he does that for a very long time before Chowder starts counting too. He gets interrupted, so he starts again. And mind you, the only thing that's supposed to keep you entertained during this counting is maybe a Schnitzel reaction of him going like just tweaking while this is happening. That is the only thing that is supposed to help with your sanity in this moment. So he's just counting repeatedly, and Chowder keeps messing it up over and over and over again. And then eventually, when he's about to finish, he's at 99, he just collapses. The old man just collapses and basically dies.
98, 199.
He doesn't actually die, kids cartoon, but in my head, he just dies. He just slumped over. Oh, that was wild. That was weird. That was really wild. And that's kind of like the main section of the episode. Like, that's literally all my takeaway from this episode is. There is another scene where Schnitzel gets to the front of the line, and then there's a robbery, and Schnitzel just stops him right away, and he deposits his check. And that's pretty much the episode. This episode does do a great job at making you feel with Schnitzel. You could relate to his struggle of being in a bank with Chowder and also having to wait all day. But I also feel like that's a hindrance to my actual enjoyment because, I mean, some of the scenes are funny, but then the majority, I'm just like, I just kind of want this to end. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. It kind of felt like a chore watching some of the scenes. Like, I understand the joke, and I understand that it helps you relate to Schnitzel, but when I'm just watching a guy count for most of 3 minutes, it's not very fun. Not gonna lie. Trust me, I get the joke. And it's a funny joke. But it went on for so unbelievably long that I got bored. I got genuinely bored, and I didn't want to watch anymore. And that struggles. And I feel like if I was a kid watching this episode, I would have turned it off. Because it does go on for that long. I could appreciate the intention, but the majority of the episode does feel a little flat and a little bit boring, at least to me. So if I was to personally rank this out of 10, I would probably only give it a 5 out of 10. I understand the intention, and I think the intention's great. That's why I'm even giving it a 5 out of 10. I don't think it's inherently awful in any way. It's just, to me, it's boring. I can completely see why some people would love this episode, why it's rated as one of the best, but to me, it just doesn't feel that way. I don't see myself ever wanting to rewatch this episode because of how boring it gets at certain times. The jokes go on for a very long time, and I feel like if they ended some of the jokes like a minute or two earlier, then it would have had the same effect and we could have had room to tell more jokes or more different interesting scenes. Like the counting coins one, man, that just went on for so unbelievably long, and by the time he was counting for the 4th or 5th time, I was like, I get the joke, man. I get the joke. This is when you need the SpongeBob guy to be like, 3 hours later. Like, that's what we needed in that moment, but we didn't get that, and it was just a hindrance to the episode. So, 5 out of 10. I still enjoyed it, but I don't think I'd ever want to watch it again. The next episode that we're going to be taking a look at, which is said to be one of the worst with a 5.9 on IMDb, is The Fire Breather. And this episode honestly isn't that bad. I mean, a 5.9 really isn't going to get you that awful of a ranking, that's for sure. The episode follows them dealing with the Dancing Diablo, the spiciest peppers on the market. Oh, they're very, very spicy. Oh, you don't want to put one in your mouth unless you are a very experienced chef. It's just not what you want to do. And Chowder, you know, he sees Mung has caught both of his mustache hairs on fire. He's like, you have a booger! And Mung drops all the peppers. They start trying to leave because they're alive. They want to be free. And Chowder opens his mouth wide, just wide agape, and he swallows all of the peppers. And this causes him to have fire breath.
To lean in really close to you and...
Okay. It's a cool premise for the episode, and we just get a bunch of scenes where he's just struggling now with his fire breath, like he brutally murders this guy that's made of ice cream.
Open mouth time!
And then in another scene, they have to be a barbershop quartet and make this souffle come to life by going, "La!" Yeah, and Chowder can't open his mouth, and he eventually just gives in. This scene went on for a very long time, by the way. They're just going, and then eventually it's about to rise, but Chowder's just like, and everything catches on fire. And I really like this joke just because it caught me off guard. I can't remember if Chowder did fourth wall breaks a lot, but Mung's just like, look at all this fire now, Chowder. Oh, God. Now the animators are going to have to draw all this fire.
Chowder, look at what you've done! Now the animators are gonna have to draw all this fire!
I thought that was pretty funny. And so Chowder now realizes that he must go and live with the dragons because he's a fire breather. So he goes and he lives with the dragons, he befriends them, and then we just get a montage of him living with the dragons. And I want to point out one scene in particular because somebody had way too much fun. They drew Chowder with a big muscly body, like absolutely jacked, and they also drew Panini just like with immense hip dips and like giant bazongas.
No man can understand!
What the fuck, man? Somebody had way too much fun with that scene. I mean, it's only there for like 1 second, but it still caught me off guard. I was like, who decided this? And so Chowder, at the end of this montage, he just rips stinky ass, like the stinkiest ass imaginable, and this causes him to not breathe fire anymore because he digested the peppers. Yippee doodle! And yeah, I guess that's probably maybe why people rated it poorly. I mean, there was burping in this episode, and now there's dirty, stinky ass ripping, so that isn't really always going to be people's cup of tea, and they probably heard that, you know, sound of, and they were like, oh my god, my ears, they're bleeding! They're bleeding! And they immediately went on IMDb and was like, this is the worst episode I've ever seen. My ears will never recover. That's probably what they were thinking. It personally didn't bother me that much because unlike a lot of gross out humor or shows that include a lot of butt jokes or fart jokes or whatever it might be, it actually was to further the plot instead of that being the genuine joke. And so Chowder just goes all the way back home, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. It was okay. It was okay. There's nothing really that bad about it. The only thing that I could highlight as being bad about it would be the burping or the fart jokes, and they weren't even that apparent throughout the episode. It was mainly focused on Chowder being a fire breather or Chowder living with the dragons. So if I was to rate this episode 1 out of 10, I'd probably give it a solid 7 out of 10. There's really nothing bad about it, and this is an episode I could go back and rewatch. There were a couple of scenes that I thought were decently funny, so yeah, it's an alright episode overall. The next worst episode I'm going to be taking a look at with a 5.9 on IMDb is the Flying Finger Lingons, and this episode follows Chowder just falling in love with these little tennis ball guys who go hoopah. He really wants to be a part of them because they're a part of the circus, and initially he just can't control himself with excitement because they're making a giant bread bowl for the Lingons because they travel around in the bread bowl because the bread bowl is their circuit. Yeah, it's very weird, but either way, making a giant bread bowl. Chowder's very excited. And then, you know, he can't control himself and starts ruining things left and right in typical Chowder fashion. I also feel bad for Schnitzel in this episode because he's just carrying a giant crate for the first, 5 minutes.
On whose authority?
He's just like, rada rada, and then Mong just keeps being mean to him and won't let him place it down on the floor, which leads to a little bit of comedy here and there, I can't lie. And so eventually, Chowder has messed up so unbelievably badly, he destroyed the ancient bottle of yeast, so Mong is very mad at him, and he sends him to his bedroom with no dinner, no food, and Chowder does the thing where he's gonna leave again after having a snotty, crying dream where he wants to join the Flying Lingons. I'm seeing some parallels in the worst episodes. The first one was about Chowder getting sent away because he had fire breath to his room, and then anytime Chowder gets sent to his room, does he automatically want to leave forever? That's a pattern I'm starting to see a little bit, but either way, he runs away with the Lingons. Well, he doesn't run away, he does have a conversation with them, and I just love the way that the show talks to each other. Like, Mong is like, you don't have the balls suit to join them because they wear tennis ball suits.
Laugh, mothers cry, and fathers proud.
You don't have the ball suit.
I cut a slit in this tennis ball and...
I liked that, but either way, Chowder goes with them, and Mong realizes his horrible mistake because Chowder's gonna cause a lot of problems. He's gonna get people killed if he's in a circus. So they go and try and stop him from joining the circus in a bunch of silly shenanigans. They try to be performers. They end up just wearing the costumes. They get in there and they save Chowder. It kind of feels like I'm just going through the motions with this episode, and that's just because that's how it made me feel. There was a lot to process going on in this episode. It felt like it took a really long time to get to when they were in the circus, and the majority of the time when they're at the circus is literally just Chowder climbing this giant bread pole and being like, oh, I'm gonna prove you wrong, Mong! I'm gonna prove you wrong! And then he gets to the top, and then he's too scared to do it, and then Mong saves him. But, I don't know, I'd still say it's pretty enjoyable. If I was to rate this episode 1 out of 10, I would probably give it a solid 6 out of 10. I wouldn't say that there's anything bad with this episode, except maybe some pacing issues. It kind of feels like it's all over the place at times, but I still had a decent enough time. The ending was a little bit underwhelming, but still fun nonetheless. It's definitely an okay episode. Heading over to the random category with a 6.5 on IMDb, we have Banned from the Stand. And we finally got a gazpacho episode. I was hoping that I would pick one of these. That's kind of why when I was picking my randoms, I chose Banned from the Stand because I wanted a gazpacho episode because I like gazpacho, this big woolly mammoth guy. I'm a big fan of him. And the episode starts off with him people watching and just giving them their own stories while they're talking to each other, which is so real. I never do it in a negative way, but sometimes when you're staring at somebody at a bus stop and they look a little bit sad, you're just like, and that man is waiting to go home to his 12-pound tuna. Something like that. I don't know. It's just something you think about when you're bored. I don't know. It's just what I do. Either way, Gazpacho and Mong get into an argument about flossberries because Mong thinks that they're not ripe because they're not turning his teeth the right color. So this leads to Gazpacho being like, banned! You're banned! Banned! And yeah, that was pretty interesting. So he's banned, and then we get Chowder. I really like Chowder's input into this whole argument and conversation to where he says that Mong just really needs fruit. You can't take away his fruit because he'll start tweaking, and Chowder starts showing how Mong starts tweaking.
I've seen him get all jittery and be like, fruit! Fruit! I need my fruit! Somebody give me a fruit!
I thought that scene was really funny because it's just like, oh, fruit, I need it. I thought that was pretty funny. And then Chowder says, in my world, that's how you react when Monk says that he doesn't do that when he doesn't have fruit. I don't know. I thought that was funny. And so Gazpacho now gets really paranoid and starts banning a bunch of people. Even Panini going up to the stand and asking for some sweet floss berries for Chowder and Monk. He's like,
Oh, hello, Gazpacho. Can I get some floss berries?
and Gazpacho's like, aren't you Chowder's boyfriend, girlfriend? Are you banned? But that does lead to a funny scene where Panini angrily tells Chowder to hold her hand, and Chowder starts like burning because they're holding hands.
You know how to get home. Hold my hand. Now! It burns! Let's go.
I thought that was pretty funny. But either way, I'm really enjoying the progression of the episode. I like Gazpacho's descent into madness and everything they're trying to do to get around it, like disguises, making Panini go up there. And Gazpacho, eventually, he starts having what I would call, I guess, paranoid banophrenia. He's just banning everybody just left and right. He eventually looks into a mirror and bans himself because he has a conversation with himself in a mirror. So much so that he just keeps on going with it. Why are you still going? He eventually leaves his stand and is like, I'm banned from my own stand, and goes and lives in an alleyway selling garbage fruit. Man, he got really into it, to say the least. And I love this scene, though, where Chowder and Gazpacho are chatting about his brand new fruit stand, and he's like, oh, Chowder, it's so fruitful. Look at all of it. Look at my divine fruit. And then it just cuts to these flies, and this one fly's like,
Lay them faster, baby. We're spotted. Lay those babies faster.
I just love the shenanigans of it so much.
It's swarming like flies. See?
Laid the eggs faster, baby. We've been spotted.
Okay.
And eventually, Gazpacho returns to his old fruit stand, destroys it, and makes a new fruit stand so he's not banned and everybody is welcome. And the one thing that I thought was interesting is usually you'd have the moment for Mong where he realizes, okay, maybe I'm a little bit wrong, let me come back and apologize, you know, we have to agree to disagree, but that never happens. He just gets banned again from the stand at the end of the episode because he's very unwilling. Either way, this episode was a lot of fun. I had a great time. I liked Gazpacho. I liked all the interactions with Chowder and Mong and their ways to try to get around it. I really enjoyed Gazpacho's descent into madness. I thought it was so funny and over the top, but it worked so well. Very, very entertaining overall. If I was to give this episode a rating out of 1 out of 10, I'd probably give it a solid 8. There's definitely nothing bad about the entire episode. It's all positive things. Got me a couple of chuckles. The flow of the plot was really good. It was just overall a very enjoyable episode. And the final episode that we're going to be taking a look at with a 6.5 rating is the episode Cream Puff Hands. And God, do I love the opening of this episode. It's so funny with Truffles being like, I need cream puffs, Mong. I need them. She literally like collapses onto the floor and she's dying because of lack of cream puffs and because she's in a mood.
Truffles is dying. We don't have time for this.
That was really funny. And then we just get to watch Chowder be a fuck up for a very long time. He just keeps messing up things, like he messes up the flour. He literally falls into the cream puff machine and gets impregnated. It's probably not the best word, but let's just roll. He gets impregnated by the cream puff machine, just doing it up into his hand. So now Chowder just has a giant hand full of cream. Yeah, and so he starts just laying waste to the entire kitchen, destroying it, so Mong tells him to leave, and Chowder starts going around town, helping a bunch of people, like he saves a baby, which also had the joke of the baby being like, I've fallen out the windows at least 7 times, baby. That was, that was weird, but it was really funny.
How many times have I told you not to play in the windowsill?
At least 7.
So Chowder just keeps going around helping people, doing a good job, he feels important, until his hand deflates, so it is no longer, hooray for being helpful! It's, be gone, Chowder, be gone. So, Chowder goes back to the cream puff, to the kitchen, and that is just, that's when he just starts tweaking. He, like, forces himself back through the machine, and he's like, I miss you, hand! And I really love all the expressions in this show. I think they're just so over the top, but it's so funny.
Welcome back, Anne! I missed you!
And so he starts going back around the town, but now he's basically Chowzilla, and just everybody's afraid of him because he starts destroying everything with his giant Mondo impregnated hand. And so he realizes that he's helped everybody because everybody's hiding from him. So he goes back to the kitchen to get an even bigger hand, and that is when Mong tries to stop him, and he's just like, I want to help the world. And again, I just love the expressions. And he goes through the machine again, but so does Mong. So now Mong is preggy, and Chowder's extra preggy, which leads to a awesome battle where they're using the cream inside of them to fight each other. This is just such a weird sentence. Me saying impregnated isn't making it any better, but I think it's funny, so I'm gonna keep it rolling. So they start battling, and every time they push each other, the cream goes to a different part of their body, and eventually the cream ends up in Mong's nose, and he slaps Chowder in the face with it.
Give me if I'm being nosy.
That's not a hand joke.
And Schnitzel's all like, rada rada, and Truffle's all like, ah, and they just start flying towards each other as they smash into Chowder, and it all goes down into Chowder's stomach, and Mong just goes like this with his nose, and it like, I don't know, that was the gross part, all the cream like flies out of his nose into Chowder's stomach again. Ah, very weird, very weird. But overall, a lot of fun. For how weird it is to watch Chowder get impregnated with a bunch of cream multiple times, it's a pretty entertaining episode, I'm not gonna lie. There was a lot of good comedy throughout this one, the plot flowed pretty well. I thought the beginning was great with Truffles just demanding cream puffs and everything Chowder did with his hand. There wasn't really a dull moment, so if I was to rate this episode 1 out of 10, I had a pretty great time, so I'd say solid 8 out of 10. There was nothing really bad about this episode. I probably made it sound worse by saying that they were impregnated. It really wasn't that bad. It wasn't like that. They just go through this machine and then they all of a sudden are filled up with cream. That still doesn't really sound any better, does it? Either way, overall, a very fun episode. Definitely an 8 out of 10. Something I would love to revisit in the future. So how well does Chowder hold up today? I'm honestly going to say that it holds up pretty well. Obviously, there were a couple of things that I didn't like here and there, like one of the best episodes, Schnitzel makes a deposit, but I'm not going to put any points against the show for that. I completely understand the intention, and I bet it is more funny to a lot of people. It's why it's rated as one of the highest. There's a lot to like about it. The jokes work well. It just was a little bit boring to me, and Chowder does do this thing where it likes to go on a lot longer than other shows with a particular scene. Like Chowder will be doing one thing and he'll do that one thing for like 15 seconds, and it makes you go like, why are you still doing this? You should have stopped like 5 seconds ago. But in that episode, that was the intention. You were supposed to be in Schnitzel's shoes because he was suffering with Chowder. And in that intention, it worked well, but it doesn't change the fact that I found it a little bit boring. Other than that, I had a pretty decent time. Even the episodes that were supposed to be some of the worst were still pretty entertaining to me, and nothing was below a 5 out of 10, so I'd say that's a pretty gosh dang good show, and there is a lot more episodes to explore, and I would love to revisit Chowder again someday. So yeah, it definitely holds up today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I have lots of good stuff planned. I'm going to be doing a video on Over the Garden Wall, Flapjack, Monster House. I'm going to be diving into movies very soon. We Bear Bears, Mighty Bee, all of these different shows, good and bad, and eventually good and bad movies. So I got a lot of content planned. I hope you've been enjoying the daily uploads. I think I'm on like a 14-day streak, trying to become the most consistent cartoon YouTuber out there, and we're well on our way. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.